It's Coast to Coast presented by Campus2Canton.com. We are back for you to cover everything that happened in Week 10 of college football and college fantasy. Down goes Sparty. Bama nearly upset in Tuscaloosa by LSU. But before we get into all of that, I need you guys to do just two things for me. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you know that every time that we go live for Coast to Coast right now, like you're watching, and Saturday morning for the tailgate, you got to follow us to figure out what's going on. And then jump in the chat. Let us know where you are watching from. We got to know where everybody is tuning in from. We just want to know. We want this to be a community here at Campus2Canton.com. But we start every Saturday with the rundown. Austin Nate, Wake Forest, UNC. We thought that we would get a lot of points from this game, just like in 2020, and this game delivered.
Yeah, it did. And down goes Wake Forest. I mean, you were talking about all these upsets in the beginning. We felt like this was going to happen eventually. Today was the day. UNC beats Wake Forest there. Close game, high scoring. North Carolina. Sam Howell had himself just a huge day. He's the reason they won this game. 16 for 26 for 216 and a touchdown in the air. Not an enormous day passing, but on the ground, he was just enormous for them. 21 carries, 104 yards, 2 touchdowns, got them key scores, key first downs, really just kind of kept this offense moving, and was a big, a performance that locks him in probably as a top option moving forward. Ty Chandler, the highest scorer there for North Carolina on the day, 213 yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground for him, scored the touchdown that ended up icing the game away. Wake tried to come back, but it came up a little bit short. Antoine Green led the receiving room, not a name that we love to hear from North Carolina there. 6 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Josh Downs was quiet, and there was not necessarily a reason for this, guys. We had a lot of people asking in our Discord today, what's going on with Josh Downs? Is he hurt? It just was a day where things were not clicking for him. So I hope he didn't cost you playoffs or anything like that, but there are better days ahead there for Josh Downs. For Wake Forest, on the losing side of things here, Sam freaking Hartman, 7 touchdowns on the day, 25 for 51 through the air, 398 yards, 5 touchdowns, a couple of costly interceptions. but was also 12 for 78 and 2 on the ground. I mean, he was just incredible.
We hadn't seen that earlier in the season. He did it on the ground today.
Yeah, it was for a while. It was just a duel between the two quarterbacks on the ground. It was very, very interesting. And then Hartman kind of took over through the air there. As you would probably guess, some big receiving performances there from Wake Forest as well. Jacory Roberson, 7 catches, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then your guy, A.T. Perry, 6 catches, 129 and 2 for him. No one else really to speak of on the ground or anything like that because Sam Hartman took it all. So Wake Forest talks of them, being snubbed in the playoff. Better luck next year, guys.
Austin, we keep seeing Sam Howell perform on the ground this year. It's something that he didn't do as much in his 2 prior seasons. Is that something that you could see him doing at the next level?
Maybe. I don't think it's smart to do it how they used him today. They just let him run up the gut over and over and over again. A bit dangerous there. Obviously, he's a stouter guy. He's not Lamar Jackson, wiry type build, but you don't want to let your quarterback do that over and over again. It's nice that he's shown that he can do it. I just don't necessarily know if I want him carrying the ball 21 times a game.
You noted A.T. Perry. He dropped 2 or 3 passes in this game. He's someone that you need to start, especially if Sam Hartman ends up coming back to Wake Forest next year. I believe he's a 3rd or 4th year sophomore, so he still has eligibility left. That team is a team that's going to put up points as they continue to draw linebackers and safeties in with those long RPO reads and get plays over the top. Austin, we will come back to you a little bit later in the show. Well, a little bit later just to cover Baylor TCU. But let me come to Matt Bruning here. Matt, Nebraska, Ohio State. I was watching this one a little bit early, and it seemed like the crowd was getting on. Like CJ Stroud, how did you it?
Yeah, I mean, this we talked a lot about this on Tailgate this morning, right? I think Austin and myself both said that we did not think this was going to be a blowout, like a lot of people were predicting. Again, same thing like with Penn State. They had like double-digit point line here, and I did not see it. Nebraska has lost, I believe, every single game by a margin of like 8 points or less, so they've been a really good team. And I'm going to give props to Adrian Martinez. Will's guy, Heisman Martinez, he may not be quite in the Heisman conversation anymore, but he ended up having a pretty decent day here. 248 through the air with 1 touchdown, a big interception, but 51 yards on the ground and a touchdown as well. He's playing with a sprained ankle and a broken jaw. So this kid is extremely tough, and the fact that he went out there, and I mean, he was getting beat up. The Ohio State's defense is an underrated part of this story here, so we'll get to them in a minute, but some Morituri, right? Amazing game, 150 yards through the air and 1 touchdown. He was torching this, supposedly good secondary, right? Because this defense has got it all figured out, and they're wonderful and amazing. They're not. On the Ohio State side here, I mean, CJ Stroud, the stats don't tell the full story here, in my opinion. He does go again over 400 yards, but he struggled in this again. This offense has got some clear issues. They really do, and I'm very curious to see if they end up fixing some of this. I mean, he was bailed out a lot by his wide receivers in this one of which Jackson Smith-Njigba, who had a massive day, almost broke the record at Ohio State for most yards in a single game, I believe, which is at 250. He finishes with 240 and 1, had the big 75-yard touchdown run. It was like, I think he got the ball from maybe 5 yards from the line of scrimmage and just took it to the house. He had an amazing game. Chris Olave continues his way up the record books as well with the touchdown here. I believe he is now 3 away from having the record for most touchdowns in a season, in a career at Ohio State. I can't imagine he doesn't get that. Henderson, though, slowed down a little bit in this one. We thought, we talked on the tailgate, we thought he'd go over 100 yards rushing, just 92, doesn't get a touchdown through the air or on the ground. Nebraska did a really good job of focusing on slowing him down and forcing CJ Stroud to beat him through the air. And while they did do it, it did not look pretty. This defense, once again, I think is a story for Ohio State. They're the reason that they ended up winning this game. Got some really interesting tests coming up. It's going to be really interesting to see what the Buckeyes are able to do here against Michigan State and Michigan and even Purdue, who has upset the number 2 team twice this year in Michigan State and Iowa when they were ranked in the top there earlier this year.
No Garrett Wilson in this one, so Jackson Smith-Njigba absolutely steps up. Matt Bruning, after Kayshon Boutte, you got to consider Quentin Johnston, But Jackson Smith and Jigba is right there. Could you see him surpassing maybe Kayshon Boutte for that wide receiver 1 in the 2023 class?
If Boutte sits, yes. If he doesn't, no. I think Boutte's the better player, and I love JSN. And I don't even think you consider Quentin Johnston. I love Johnson. I think it's Johnson, Downs, Addison, maybe Jarrett, all kind of right there in the conversation. But I think all three of those guys are a tier below Boutte and JSN. If Boutte comes back and play, no. I think everybody's talking about JSN today because of the day he had, but Boutte does that every week when he's playing and healthy. So JSN's only done this twice this year, going over like 150 yards. That was, if Boutte didn't go over 150, we were like, what the hell is wrong with Kayshon Boutte? So no, I don't think he jumps Boutte unless he doesn't play.
Well, I wish I could be as high a performer where struggling would be 400 yards. We've said that a number of times this season for C.J. Stroud. All right, Matt Bruning, we will come back to you. Let's bring Austin Ace back in here. Austin, Baylor is a ranked team, and so we need to pay attention to them. And TCU has Zach Evans, has the aforementioned Quentin Johnston. How did this one turn out today?
Well, as it turned out, no Zach Evans. A lot of rumors about him going around right now. Regardless, TCU still won without him today, upsetting a pretty good Baylor team there, 30-28. The story of this game is Chandler Morris, former Oklahoma kid, transferred or got stolen away from them to TCU. He's former head. Do you remember Chad Morris? He was the head coach at Arkansas, I believe, there for a while. It's his kid, which I did not realize until today, a 3-star in last year's class. He played in place of Max Duggan at quarterback for TCU, and he threw for 461 yards. It was better than anything I've seen Max Duggan do in 3 years there. I don't know where this kid came from. Should he be the starter moving on? I think we're certainly going to have a discussion about that this week and beyond. He also had 70 yards and a touchdown on the ground. I mean, it was a really good performance. TCU was not doing much outside of him, and it didn't really matter. Quentin Johnston, you did mention 5 catches, 142 yards, and a touchdown. Looks like those two might have some good chemistry. Dugan and Johnston never really have. So, again, if you like Quentin Johnston, probably root for Chandler Morris there to hold on to that job. And yeah, no Zach Evans today. Really no rushing performances to speak of there outside of, again, Mr. Chandler Morris. For Baylor, Jerry Bohannon, 14 for 20 for 214 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and Abram Smith, 18, 125 on the ground there. Ty Thornton, kind of post-hype sleeper there, a disappointing 2020, rebounding in 21. 5 catches, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. So Baylor, they could have been a New York 6 team at this point, probably not. Watch out for TCU here down the stretch with potentially a new quarterback.
Austin, Quentin Johnston has been inconsistent this season. He's also been injured, but you don't have an issue with him being comfortably inside the top 10 of all Devy wide receiver rankings, do you?
No, he should probably be in there just solely based on his, his athletic gifts. He's big, he's fast, he's strong, all these kinds of things. So I think he definitely has a place in there. It'd be interesting to see, again, what's the quarterback situation there, and does he continue to kind of build that relationship with whoever is behind center?
Austin, we appreciate it. We'll come back to you a little bit later. Matt, get back in here for the 4 p.m. game, Mississippi State, Arkansas. We had an upset in this one, did we not?
No. Mississippi State lost. But this was a hell of a game. And I almost would say probably for these
Mississippi State's ranked. So in Arkansas.
Oh, were they? I thought, most people were picking Arkansas to win. So I apologize. And yes, this was an upset. This was a hell of a game. And I think an instant classic if you're a fan of Mississippi State or Arkansas. I mean, these teams in the third and fourth quarter were just trading blows, going back and forth. Start with Mississippi State, since they lost. Will Rogers had himself a day. And I mean, there was a lot of talk about him and going to this offense and who the quarterback would even be at the beginning of this season. I remember many episodes of Campus Live. Felt like it was every episode. Austin and Colin were debating who was going to win this battle and who was going to be there, because we want that quarterback in a Mike Leach offense. 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 417 yards through the air. And I mean, he led them down the field and gave them a chance to win that game. Why Mike Leach went to a kicker who has not kicked, I believe, in the past 2 weeks and kicked in this game, is beyond me. Honestly, in my opinion, why they lost the game, but that part of it is what it is. Jacoby's Marks had a pretty decent day here. Only 40 yards on the ground, 46 through the air, but had a big catch and run in the fourth quarter to get a first down to keep a drive going, which led to, I believe it was actually his receiving touchdown, where he was left wide open in the corner of the end zone that ended up giving them the lead before KJ Jefferson drove back down the field. We'll talk about him in a minute. The Mississippi wide receivers, Polk continues to be very good for them. Doesn't get a touchdown this one, but goes over 100 yards again. Ra Thomas, though, was the guy of the day. Him and Will Rogers had a great connection throughout this game. 63 yards, 2 big touchdowns. He kept driving down and getting open up in the middle of the field, and Rogers was hitting him. Williams also had a pretty good day with 72 yards. But Arkansas ended up pulling up the win because of KJ Jefferson and Treylon Burks. And my God, Treylon Burks. I mentioned it on Twitter. Ray Garvin said he reminds him of Josh Gordon, and I can't unsee that after he said that. I mean, and he looks at when he's playing. He's so much fun to watch. But 191-1 through the air for Jefferson here. Burks, though, gets the touchdown, 82 yards again. Really great day for him. The Arkansas running backs, Johnson was the guy who had the big day here. Big kid, big looking kid as well. 100 yards and 2. Sanders and Smith were both kind of held in check. But, I mean, congratulations to Arkansas. That big drive, like I said, by Jefferson and Burks there at the end. Drive all the way down the field. There was like 2 minutes left on the clock. They left 20-something seconds after they scored. And, I mean, they almost had them. It almost ended up being a tie game and going to overtime. But Arkansas survives and gets the upset.
KJ Jefferson keeps producing, and we need to start keeping closer tabs on him. His value could increase as the season goes on and as we get into C2Cs next year. I mean, he has NFL size, he has NFL arm talent. It's just and he's mobile, he can run. Maybe just an issue of accuracy, but KJ Jefferson, we gotta watch that guy. All right, Matt Bruni, we appreciate it. Let's bring in the meanest guy on Twitter, Mr. Kevin Coleman. Kevin, someone that everyone is paying attention to is Malik Willis, but Liberty did not fare well today.
No, they did not. It was a bad game from the start. You could tell Liberty was outmatched, outgunned in this game. Willis was running around with his head, just trying not to get killed back there. His offensive line was awful. But, Willis didn't play very well. He was 16 for 25, 173 yards, and 3 interceptions. He also, on the ground, he had a touchdown and 71 yards, off 27 carries. So he was really he just didn't look as good as we expected him to do in this battle of QB1s. And I think there's a real question. We got to temper expectations a little bit with Willis. There's a reason why Willis had to transfer to Liberty. There's a lot of reasons why he had to go to that program and why he's looked very good. But in the couple games that he's played this year against Syracuse, against Ole Miss, he has not looked very good. So I think we got to temper our expectations on him. He's got to develop. There's some things that you'd like to see. And yes, he was playing against another team that obviously is much better than him and his team in general, but there's a reason why he struggled, and I think that it's good to take away those things and be careful with that. As far as that, Shedro Lewis, he had 7 carries, 101 yards, and a touchdown. Joshua Mack had 19 and 98. And you're looking at, Demario Douglas, 5 catches, 56 yards. So there's really nothing on the offensive side for Liberty. I think the biggest story is, okay, now where do we look at Malik? Where do we put him at in that category of quarterbacks? And, it's kind of blah for me all around. I mean, I love Matt Corral on the other side. Ole Miss won this game. Corral had 324 yards and a touchdown. He was really efficient, 20 for 27. He looked really good. He was basically just toying with his defense. He knew where he was going. There was really no doubt in this game. Jerrion Ely, he kind of popped out this game. I guess he's healthy, so 10 carries, 115 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He looked really good on the receiving side of it. Danis Jackson had 6 catches, 126 yards, and a touchdown. John Rice Plumlee had 7 catches, 110 yards. So they really just they toyed with these guys on the offensive side. But to me, it really separated itself as like, hey, Corral could be a legitimate QB1 of this class. And then you have Willis where, hey, we're going to have to wait and see what his measurables look like and how good he tests and what team's going to take a shot at him. I think Willis needs to go to a team that's going to really exasperate his strengths and limit his weaknesses, and he needs to go to a good organization, because if he goes to a bad organization, it could be a rough time.
Kevin, Jerrion Ely is a name that's widely known in Devy circles, but we haven't talked about him much this season. Is he a guy that you think could be he's sub 200 pounds, 5'9", 5'8", the two-sport player. Could he have an NFL role?
I never really been high on Ely, to be honest, just because of that size. And he's listed at 185. What do you think he really is at, right? It's like what my driver's license lists me at 170. But let's be real here. Like there's some question marks there. So if he goes under that, I think it's about testing numbers. So if he's going to go under that, then I'm worried. I'm really concerned. I think he could have a role. I just don't see him getting very good draft capital.
All right. Kevin, you also covered LSU, Alabama. I mean, LSU
Unfortunately
here had a chance late to win this one in Tuscaloosa. Just talk about this game for us?
This game was awful, and it was weird. It was a long game. Alabama won 2014, and they survived a Hail Mary at the end. But I think the key thing is, like, Max Johnson is terrible. Like, he's not a very good quarterback. And I don't know why people had him so high up in the C2C. I'm not sure what this crew thought of. I don't remember what you guys said. So if I'm bashing you guys, I'm sorry. But he just does not look very good. He never was really that good. Ever since he threw behind the back against UCLA, I think that was pretty much everybody had to put there. So 16 for 32. 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception. He looks bad. He didn't have very good pocket presence. I will say this, Tyron Davis-Price, he had a good game. He had 23 carries, 104 yards. They had a chance to go up 14-21 or 21-20. They were on the 8-yard line, and they just did not capitalize. Davis has really got to score that. He had a long run right there. I think it was a 38-yard run, and he got caught, so that hurt him there. The biggest problem I think that LSU has is after Boutte went down, the receiving has just not been there. Jariah Jenkins had 4 catches, 54 yards. Trey Palmer, who I sadly have on a couple rosters, 2 catches, 36 yards. Jack Beck is out there. Brian Thomas scored as well. But, in reality, they don't have the playmakers on the outside. But I think a lot of that has to do with Max. Max is just not very good. On the flip side, I'm still very high on Bryce. I love Bryce. He had 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was 24 for 37. I love his pocket presence. I think that he does a lot of the intangible things right. And he gets a lot of shit from, I don't know if you could say that on this broadcast, but from Alabama fans. And I don't know why. Like, he's probably helping this team more. Alabama's not playing very well right now. I think that offense is a little out of flux because they couldn't get a running game in this game. That was the biggest thing. Brian Robinson Jr., 13 carries, 18 yards, and a touchdown. Roydell Williams, 2 carries, 9 yards. I in my opinion, they're missing McClellan a lot, and I think that's starting to show a little bit. So, you have that. But hey, your guy, Jamison Williams, baby, 10 catches, 160 yards, and a touchdown. I love this kid just like you do, even though Austin's a hater. John Mechie, 9 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. And, those are the guys that are there. Jamison won this game for them, and Bryce, and they're going to carry them, and they survive. And I think Alabama is going to, I think they're the number 2 team in the country. I'm not one of those guys that's against that ranking. But it's going to be Bryce. Bryce is going to have to lead this team.
Yeah, Austin likes touting the guys who are the 5-star guys and the guys towards the top of the recruiting rankings. Austin doesn't like to dig and tout too many guys lower on there. All right, the rundown is over. We appreciate it, Kevin Coleman, but we are going to toss it back to you, one of the nicest guys in the fantasy community, Matt Bruning, and the aforementioned Kevin Coleman for headlines.
All right, so I get to run this segment for once. It's not the Felix Austin show. And I get to be on here with Kevin. This is kind of exciting.
That's weird. We've never done this before.
I know. I don't even know what to do with myself. I don't know where to put my hands. I don't even know what to talk about. So we've got some very interesting headlines done up by one of the head people over here in the Sparty spanking. Michigan State upset by Purdue. How big of a loss do you think this is for Michigan State? And obviously, they're likely not making the playoffs now. How far down do you think they fall from that 3 ranking?
Yeah, I mean, I picked this game, so I'm gonna say I picked Purdue in this game outright. I thought they were just gonna get a letdown. I thought Michigan State was gonna lose because they beat Michigan in that great game, and I had that. But this was a bad loss. I mean, they gave up 530 yards to Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell sounds like a 1990s sitcom star or something like that. Like he's not that great. 40 for 54. I mean, he crushed them on this field. And I think that it does. As far as where they drop, I think they're going to drop to like 7 or 8, somewhere in that area. I don't think they drop outside the top 10. Because it's on the road. Purdue's not a bad school. I mean, Purdue, they're 6-3, 4-2 in conference. So realistically, they're not like one of these bottom feeders, especially when they beat Ohio State soon. So I think that he played well. Michigan State had chances. They just kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit, and Peyton Thorne, kind of threw him out of this game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they lose next week, unfortunately. What do you think this does for Kenneth Walker's Heisman talk? I mean, he didn't have a great game here. There's a lot of people talking about him possibly being the Heisman frontrunner after being the kind of the sole reason that Michigan lost to them, and really nobody standing out, right? We thought it was going to be Corral, Bryce Young earlier in the season. Both of those guys have struggled. Is this kind of effectively even ended his chance to get an invite to New York?
I don't. This is tough. I think that he's still going to get an invite. He has to, right? But I looked at the odds right before we came on just to see from the Vegas odds. They updated them after the games tonight. Bryce Young is still plus 190. Matt Corral's plus 275, and your guy CJ Stroud is plus 450. So Kenneth, based on Vegas, is fourth right now. So if you're looking at that, and Caleb's right behind him, and Caleb didn't play today, and so you have that. Our guy Kenny Pickett, I don't know why he's still on there, but you have those guys. So I think Kenneth's going to get an invite. I don't see him winning. This is a quarterback award, unless something happens where these other guys don't do there. I really think Matt Corral still could win this Heisman if they win out, if they can compete right down the stretch, and he has these good games like he's been having is there. But I think it's weird. This is a weird Heisman. Is there any guy that stands out to you? Like I love Bryce, but has he had a Heisman year? I don't know. Maybe if he beats Georgia.
That's why I was hoping Kenneth Walker would continue his run so that we could get 2 years in a row of it not being a quarterback award. And get CJ Stroud out of there. He doesn't deserve to be in there. All right, next up, bye Baylor. TCU starts a new era with a big win here. What do you think this does for TCU? I mean, Baylor, this kind of knocks them down. They already had the one loss. They needed to keep winning. They're kind of knocked out of Big 12 contention and any kind of hope for any chance of getting back in the playoffs. But TCU, big one. They let go of Gary Patterson, who it seems like everybody down there really liked. All the players were playing for him. There was a plane flying a sign over the stadium talking about how they missed him. Is this a good thing for TCU that they got the big win?
I mean, it's good that they won. I do think I don't know. Did you see the coaching thing that came out about TCU? Who they want, like who they're inviting? I don't know if you saw that.
I did. Like, Deion Sanders. I can't remember the other guys.
Well,
it wasn't
what Kellen Moore.
List.
Kellen Moore was on there too. I just look at that and I'm like, man, is that better than Gary Patterson? I think they did have to leave. I understand that. This is a bad look for Baylor. Baylor is kind of a turnaround season. Aranda's done a good job there. I thought Aranda was in the running for LSU job, but if you can't beat TCU when they're 4-4, I think that hurts your credibility there. But like Austin talks about, I hate to give him a shout out on this, but Chandler Morris. Is this the guy? Like, can he be the guy that steps up there? And I think that's the key there. Oh yeah, and I want to bring up Tony Elliott. Yeah, go hire Tony Elliott. Clemson could barely beat Louisville tonight. Yeah, go hire him. But I would say the real key is Chandler Morris. Can he be that guy that they move forward with? And Quentin Johnson's a stud. I know you wrote about him. I think before we liked each other, I read your piece on Quentin Johnson.
True, yeah.
And
we both hated each other.
You did talk about it last summer. You really went through it, and I remember reading that. Oh yeah. And so to your credit, I think I read your piece first before I saw who Quentin Johnson was. So I give you a shout out.
Thank you. I'm going to clip that and post it everywhere that I was first, because that matters now in the Twitter community, whoever's first. And nobody in high school knew his father's brother's twice removed cousin's sister that may have texted him at one point. But I did. I wrote an article on him. I really liked him coming up as a freshman. Yeah, I'm with Chandler Morrison. Well, I'm sure we'll talk more about him when we get to our panel discussion. But as someone who has a lot of shares of Quentin Johnson, please, dear God, let's let Max Dugan just stay on the bench and let's see what Chandler Morris has. UNC you later. North Carolina mows down Wake Forest. Wake Forest yet still is undefeated in conference because this was not a conference game, even though North Carolina is in the conference. It was a scheduled home and home, I believe, for the past couple of years between the two of them. There's no shot, though, if Wake Forest goes the rest of the season undefeated and wins their division, their conference, that they make the playoffs, right?
I mean, unless something crazy happened, unless guys are losing out of there. No, this hurts me because Wake Forest was kind of a Debbie Royale favorite just because we wanted to see chaos. We wanted them to go undefeated and do the Clemson thing and just kind of walk their way into the playoff, and everybody would be like, hey, you have to put them in. But no, I think that when you look at it from that perspective, they can't do anything about this. This is a bad loss. Hartman's okay, but he's not. Like I said, someone asked me about him prior to the game, and I said he's a good college quarterback, but he's not an NFL prospect.
Has Hal helped his stock at all for you? I mean, I know that this is a big win for North Carolina. They have not been winning as many games. They're 5-4 now on the season. I was one person who had him in the playoffs. I thought they could go through undefeated, beat Clemson, win this conference. I keep saying divisions, win this conference. Has he helped himself at all with the way he's played, especially showing that mobile side of himself the past couple weeks? We did not see that at all last year. I feel like a lot of people kind of forgot that he can do what he can with his legs.
Yeah, I think that helps, but let's be real. If he does that shit in the NFL, he's gonna die. Like the way he takes hits, like that's not gonna work. Like and going in there, so I think it does help. To me, it's Hal and Corral are in their own tier to me. But I also think Hal has the safest floor. So if we're looking at these guys from fantasy perspectives, like I think that Hal is a very safe play. Like I think he's gonna be a very safe floor. These other guys are very volatile floors. Like I love Corral. But at the same time, I know Corral has limitations, and he definitely could not pan out. Whereas I think Hal, I'm confident that he can be a very solid QB too. To the way I comp him, he's as a fantasy, he's probably a little bit better than probably like I would say a little maybe a little worse than Joe Burrow. Probably a little better than Mac Jones and a little bit worse than Joe Burrow from a fantasy perspective, like that QB 12 to 14 range, where I think that could be his solid floor, and that's what you get. These other guys, though, are very volatile. So, like, I like Hal, though. He has arm strength, man. He gets the ball out to his guys. We all know in this space how many weapons he lost. If he had this team last year, is playing this year, they go undefeated. It wouldn't, and everybody would be talking about Hal being the 101. It wouldn't matter. So I think we just need to cool it there. He hasn't done anything bad. It's just that he's been around so long that they kind of have prospect fatigue.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I've been saying that for years. That's why I had him up at 1 when we did our stuff this offseason over Spencer Rattlers. I'm with you. He's the safest floor. I've said I would not be surprised if he's the number 1 quarterback drafted because of that. I use it as like the Baker Mayfield draft where Baker just has this very safe floor. The Browns take him because they know what you're going to get from a guy like Hal. So I agree with everything you said. I really hope he goes 1 or I think he'll go as the second quarterback if he doesn't go as 1 because I agree with you. He's going to be really good in the NFL. I like everything that he does. So last but not least here, what does the College Football Playoff Committee do this Tuesday? You just mentioned Alabama probably stays at 2. I imagine you still have Georgia at 1. I have not looked to see what that Oregon game is doing. Last I saw, they were losing to Washington. We had them at 4, Michigan State at 3. Michigan State loses. So how do you think the top 4 shakes out now on Tuesday?
So right now, Oregon's up 24-16. Washington has the ball with 2 minutes left. So I'm going to just pretend like they win. So if they win this game and they hold on, which, damn, that's a bad – Oregon's not good. If they could beat Utah, they're going to probably get in based on just how everything's going. But that Utah game loans ours in 2 weeks. But what I would say is this. I would go like this. Alabama is 2. Oklahoma, I think, is going to jump into the top 4 somewhere. I think, and they didn't even play a game. So I think they're going to rewrite that one. If I had to just jump, I'd say Oklahoma 3. I think Oregon's at 4 still because you really can't do too much to them. Ohio State, I think, is going to jump Cincinnati. Then I'll have Cincinnati there, and then probably Michigan State somewhere in there. So that's what I think it's going to be. Cincinnati's not a playoff. Can we all agree? I hope we all agree on this.
No.
I do not want to see Cincinnati in the playoff. Like, they're going to get destroyed. They almost got their ass kicked by Tulsa today, and they should have lost. They're stupid. I hate that rule. I didn't know that was a rule where you can't give up your body if you're jumping into the end zone. They should have scored there. Like, Cincinnati's not good. So I think Ohio State's going to jump them, and it'll be interesting to see. I hope Oklahoma wins out, and so does Oregon, and so does Ohio State. Because they're going to be Michigan. I'm that guy. And what are they going to do with Oregon and Ohio State there? That is going to be an interesting.
I think Oregon gets in. If the two of them are tied, they have the head-to-head. And we've seen that the committee values that. And if they go and they beat Utah, I'm okay with it. Hey, I said that there was a real shot they lost that game. I couldn't pick Oregon to win it, but I have no bones about that.
Matt.
They do suck. They don't deserve to be in the top 4. Cincinnati does. Oregon does not. Oregon lost to a crappy Stanford team. Because the one thing I'll say about Tulsa, I think Ohio State only beat them by 12. Like, Tulsa is a good team. Now, I agree with you. Cincinnati's not the best. But I think the difference with Cincinnati is their defense is a lot better than people give them credit for. They would not beat a Georgia or Alabama, but I guarantee they would not get blown out like a Notre Dame team has the past couple of years. That's my biggest argument for Cincinnati. I think they could only lose by 10. And that matters because I'm tired of watching whoever plays Georgia or Bama in that first game get blown out by 40, and it ruins my morning game because I'm like, this game sucks. Well, I have to do house chores because my wife knows I'm not watching the game, and it's horrible. All right, so
Georgia, Oregon would be a bloodbath. Like,
exactly. So let's put Cincinnati back in there. Let's get a rematch of that game next year. And last year, yeah, Cincinnati probably still lose by 10, but it won't be as bad as those other ones. All right. So that'll be it for me at headlines, guys. Thanks for letting me take over the show. Now I believe I don't know who's hosting Left Coast with Kevin, so I'm just going to let whoever behind the scenes handle that one. I'm just going to disappear.
It's panel time. Matt, come back. Don't leave me. I love you. How about this? Does this bring you back?
Ooh. Matthew Boohoo Bruning. It does. I'm back. Why am I boohooing? I'm so confused.
You seemed really worked up about Cincy. Felix, are you joining us?
Do I not get to be in here? What the hell is going on?
You're here.
You control. I thought you could control.
I
yourself.
just added myself in.
Yeah. Congratulations on being a big boy and adding yourself there. What's up, everybody? We do this every week. We talk a little bit about some value changes here throughout the day. Let's go to Kevin first. Kevin, do you have somebody that positively or negatively, I guess, you guys were a bit Debbie Downers there.
It's going to be hard for Kevin to be positive. So
do you have somebody in mind here that moved the needle today?
Yeah. Oh, today? Shit. All right. Yeah.
Or this week. I mean, sure. Go Maction or whatever if you want to.
Well, no, I'll talk to you. So I'll start with today. Trey McBride. I'm going to go off the show sheet. So Trey McBride is just carrying that Colorado State offense, not to wins, but just to accolades. He has 9 catches today, 98 yards again. On the season, he already has 65 catches and 740 yards. He only has 1 touchdown, though. So obviously you want to get him in there. But you know what? I think he's making a case for himself to be tight end 1, which isn't like an amazing thing in this class. But I mean, still, where he came from, and I know we knew about him, but that's because we're smart. But other guys, like who's Trey McBride? Where did he come from? Like, I think he's improved his draft stock considerably. And I love him as a prospect.
Yeah, your co-host over on Debbie Royale there, Christian Williams, I believe, was very big on Trey McBride coming into the season. He really nailed that one. Felix, come over to you. I know you spent all day tailgating in your wonderful apron. Anybody?
I still smell like the grill, by the way. And I mean, the audience should know I sat down at the microphone without having looked at the show sheet with about 3 minutes until the show started. So
that explains your up and down performance.
Yes, as opposed to any other performance. Let's give a shout out to Mac. I mean, you mentioned Maction. 3 of the top 10 wide receivers as far as receiving yardage for this week come from the MAC. And Tavon Randolph absolutely went off, like putting up video game numbers. He had the most receiving yards this season. And Austin, you talked about him on our show last week or the week before about guys that we need to pay attention to and that you want to have rostered in 2022. He had 309 yards receiving in a freaking game. I mean, when Maction starts, you absolutely need to have – I started Khalil Pimpleton in a game, and he had a great game, not just considering his special teams, 2 touchdowns on special teams. I mean, these Maction if you are not in a Campus to Canton league, you need to be in one because it makes these games more fun. When you have a Tavon Randolph, who no one is talking about, go off in your starting lineup for 309 yards and 3 touchdowns. And that guy's a freshman. He is a freshman. So shout out to Maction, shout out to the MAC, Tavon Randolph, Jack Sorensen, and Hassan Beydoun from Eastern Michigan, all going off this week. They are 3 of the top 10 highest wide receivers as far as receiving yardage goes this year. And I mean, those Maction games are just fun. So I want to give a shout out to them. And I don't know if anyone's going to mention Dwayne McBride. Dwayne McBride is a guy that I was touting early in the season, and he did not start off well. But you look who he's playing against. He's playing against Georgia. Now look at Dwayne McBride, 14 for 61 or whatever against Georgia, averaging 4.7 yards a carry. I'm like, well, that's pretty damn good. I don't know who anybody else who's played as well, but he went off for over 200 yards today. So Maction, Dwayne McBride. Let's give a shout out to some of these G5 guys.
And no one is talking about Tavon Randolph because his real name is Trayvon Rudolph. Matt Bruning, anybody stock up or stock down? I couldn't make it through. I tried to not laugh. Oh, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I'll mention 2 quarterbacks here. I'll start with Chandler Morris since we've already talked a little bit about him. I mean, what a game to come out there. I mean, what was it? talked about like a couple hours, if that, before the game kicked off, that Max Duggan was not going to be playing. They were going to have Chandler Morris in there, and just how good he also made Quentin Johnston look, that whole offense in general. I'm all in on Chandler Morris. I really do hope that they give him a chance to keep playing. No offense to Max Duggan. He's just not it. We have not seen him do anything close to what we saw Morris do in one game against what is, in my opinion, a very good Baylor team. And then Hendon Hooker. I mean, 316 yards, 4 touchdowns through the air today against what was considered a very good Kentucky team. They just beat him 45-42. Austin, you and Colin were talking all offseason that he should have been the starter there for Tennessee. I think if he keeps playing like this, I don't know if he has an NFL future. I think he could realistically get an invite to the Senior Bowl this year. And if he goes out there and impresses, maybe he does get drafted and ends up being a backup quarterback in the NFL. But for a guy you likely got off waivers or toward the end of your draft in any C2C leagues, I mean, he's been really good for you the past couple weeks if you've been starting him, possibly a league winner with how good he's been, and possibly has a shot to be a backup in the NFL. So I think major stock up for Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, he's been on fire here recently. I don't know. There's quite a few fun names to choose from. I already talked about Chandler Morris here. Yeah. We got Helani back there for Boise. Finally, heating back up their first big game of the season. I guess somebody
first big game in like 2 years for George Helani.
hey, baby steps. He's no Tavon Randolph. Oh, sorry. Ty Chandler is probably realistically the guy that maybe has helped himself the most here over the past couple of weeks. Over 200 yards here again. I mean, I know Wake Forest's rush offense or defense is just garbage, but I mean, he's been really it's been Sam Howell, it's been Josh Downs, and then their third option has been Ty Chandler. He's caught passes. He's been really their only rush game. We thought, a Kamaro Edmonds or a Caleb Hood or one of the Henderson would step up and kind of be their second back. They haven't had anybody do that. Howell has done that, and Chandler's filled in the other cracks. So I think he's a guy that is sneakily, I don't think he's a day one guy. And to be honest, I would be really, really shocked if he goes day 2. But fourth round, fifth round, I mean, I think he can be on a roster and, one of those guys that pops up here and now for a dynasty team in the future for an NFL team. So good for him there that he's been doing that. We can't let Colin watch this episode, by the way.
Austin, are we just dialing up Josh Downs as a wide receiver 1 next year with Drake May at the helm? I mean, it's a
good question. I don't have strong feelings yet on Drake May either way. Like, I was fine on him coming out of high school, and he looked like fine in the spring game. I want to see spring game and hear what
Drake May's really good
about him. You're a big Drake May guy.
I like Drake May a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't think he's
not that my opinion matters. I like Drake.
No,
I watched him. I like
it matters more than Austin's. The one thing I will say, he didn't come into the game though when Howell got hurt. I don't know if that really matters. But they brought in the big chunky kid who the sophomore. I'm sorry. He came out there and I was like, it looks like an offensive lineman, not a quarterback. So, but I was kind of surprised that it was him who came out there, not Drake May. So
this show is off the rails. All right. I did a really poor job controlling this session. Let's kick it over to Felix and Kevin for Left Coast check-in. Have a good night, everybody.
We do the Left Coast check-in every night with Kevin Coleman, co-host of the Debbie Royale, Debbie contributor at Fantasy Pros, contributor at Campus2Can.com, and co-owner of Triple Play Fantasy. You're doing a lot of stuff. You can find him at DuBois_2020, DuBois_22 if you want to get your feelings hurt there with Kevin Coleman. Kevin, San Jose State, Nevada. How's Carson Strong looking? Do I need to tweet something about his rushing yardage tonight?
This game is not going the way that we'd probably want if we're Carson Strong fans, but it's in the second quarter right now with 8:31 left. San Jose State and Nevada 7-7. Carson Strong is 12 for 20, 79 yards and an interception, and he has -10 yards rushing. So there's that. One other thing is Starkel came back today for San Jose, and he's at 77 yards and a touchdown. So Starkel looks like he's playing well tonight. So this will be an interesting game for the Mountain West coming down the stretch, especially because Boise beat Fresno State tonight.
Kevin, UTSA, UTEP. I mean, if you're in C2C leagues, there are a couple of guys that you could be starting from this game, from Sincere McCormick to the wide receiver for UTEP, whose name's
Jacob Cowing.
Jacob Cowing. 16-6 here at halftime.
16-6. Sincere McCormick's having a good game again. You know, he's been banged up, and so I unfortunately didn't start him tonight like an idiot. And he has 8 carries, 127 yards, and a touchdown. So he's averaging 15.9 per carry right now. He had a 75-yard run. That kind of boosted it up. Zachary Franklin, 4 catches, 42 yards there. On the other side, Jacob Cohen is one reception for 21 yards. That's it. He hasn't had there. Tyron Smith has the catch for the touchdown, 35 yards. But other than that, Ronald Watt, he has 8 carries, 55 yards. But UTSA looks like they're going to be going to 9-0.
9-0 for UTSA, and they're going to be rising in RJ Young's rankings. Kevin, USC at Arizona State. It looks like Jackson Dart has gotten some time in here, but Keaton Slovis is getting the majority of the snaps.
Yeah, Slovis is bad. So, all you Slovis people out there, 5 for 10, 54 yards and interception. Jackson Dart did come in. I think he's going to probably be the guy. They're down 7-0 to a bad Arizona State team that just hasn't performed lately. Rashad White has 7 carries, 38 yards. DeMonta Trammon is back, two carries, 12 yards and a touchdown. Jaden he's 5 or 6 for 50 yards, so he looks okay there. The biggest thing is Arizona State just doesn't have that receiving. They don't have the receivers. Albion Bunkley Shelton just hasn't popped out. Ricky Purcell hasn't done very much this game. Keontae Ingram's having an okay game, 6 carries, 21 yards. He has a catch. It's just getting started though, so we'll see how this down the stretch. But I'm interested to see what Jackson Dart can do, because I'm a big Dart guy as well. I think this freshman class, like we were just talking about May and those guys, like it has a potential for some of these guys to really pop up, and we could see a very strong class with Ewers being there, and then you have Caleb and all these guys. Like we could be talking about these guys being like a strong 4 or 5 deep. Yeah,
we absolutely can. Tyler Van Dyke, my guy, has to be considered for 2023. He had an excellent day today. All right, Kevin, we appreciate it. Always checking in with you for the Left Coast check-in, and you can find Kevin at DuBois_2020 at DuBois_22, and he's find him and Jeff Bell on the Devi Royale Tuesday nights and wherever you get your podcast. Appreciate it, Kevin.
Yep, man. Thank you.
All right, Matt Bruning, Austin Nace. What else do we need to talk? I didn't see what happened in the Fresno State Boise State game. I saw that that my guy Jake Haener was down early. I have to assume that that's because Jalen Cropper didn't play, and he was just so instrumental in their offense that that they were not able to get it going. I'm trying to bring up the stats here on my phone, but
that would be incorrect.
Why don't we let Mr. Season Ticket Holder for Fresno State answer the question? So I'm sure he watched the game. I'm sure that Kevin can tell us at least something about what happened. I
didn't go because I sold my tickets because I like money. But Jake Haener he had 3 interceptions tonight. He didn't look great. Boise always kicks Fresno's ass. And it was just one of those games where I knew it was going to be interesting. If you give up 117 yards to George Holani's ghost, that's a problem. That's definitely a problem out there. And he also had 2 catches for 69 yards also. Khalil Shakur also had that. So that's not great for Fresno State. And I think that, rushing attack wasn't really there. Ronnie came back, but they just got on him early. Boise State got him on early, and they were up 16-7 before it was even what happened. Bachmeier didn't make any mistakes, and they couldn't stop the run, and they just ran him down the throat.
Ran it down the throat, 1 catch for 69 yards. I mean, Kevin just throwing all the innuendos out there.
Haener's hurt. Can we I see people roasting Haener. I just think at this point that their season is kind of, quote unquote over, because
they were ranked 23 coming into this game. It's not over.
They look like they barely won last week. I mean, they're only going to go as far as Haener can go, and Haener's hip is really bothering him. It's blatantly obvious.
those same people roasting him couldn't do a podcast with that hip pointer that he has. But they'll be out here roasting his ass and stuff. Like he can't. When you go to,
I'll take that bet, Kevin. Come hit me with your car in Pittsburgh.
They got those. They got those cushy little. They got those cushy little cushions you sit on now. That'd be fine. I could sit all day on this.
When you go to the games and Haener comes off, he immediately lays and stretches with a trainer every drive, and he cannot move. So when he comes off, he's really hurt. It's impressive that he's even out there, to be honest. But yeah, I can't stand the couch potatoes telling me that Haener's not tough and not good. That dude's out here, and that's a legitimate injury that he's got right now.
Can we talk about Tyler Van Dyke?
No.
I mean, I know I mentioned
so Hudson Card comes into the game here, Austin. Does that matter for Texas? I did not see what happened with Casey Thompson. So does anybody know what happened? Did he get injured, or did they just pull him because he's just a game manager?
Full disclosure, I did not watch this game, but I have not heard.
Act like it. Just fake it. Just fake it.
I mean, I can talk for hours about how much Casey Thompson sucks, but I'm not going to do that. That would be rude. Yeah, they don't have their quarterback there. Whether it's transfer, they solve it. Whether it's Malik Murphy is not a day one starter, but does he get thrown into the fire too early because they don't have anybody? I mean, I don't know what the solution is there next year, but it's another game where they were up at halftime. Granted, it was only 7-3, and then they got crushed in the second half every single week.
It could be. I mean,
yeah. If Quinn goes there, Texas is back, right?
Away from, yeah. I mean, you got to think 3 people transferring away from Ohio State after this season. Ewers, Miller, who got a DUI, and
McCord.
Jesus, the best of them all, Kyle McCord. Come on, we're definitely not talking Tyler Van Dyke now.
Friend of the show.
I will make sure we don't talk Tyler Van Dyke now.
Any of those guys, I think, would start over Card and Malik Murphy and Casey Thompson. I mean, Sark is a good offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
he can make somebody look good.
So if we all believe that Card probably is not the guy because he's just not looked good, if he finishes out the season and just does anything, or do you try to offload him as quickly as possible this offseason?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. You mean trade him and see your C2Cs?
Yeah, trade him. Yeah, trade him and see what you can get for him. Because I mean, there was a lot of people. I won't say any names, but Donald. Well, that was not going to sound. It rhymes with Colin Decker, but maybe not him exactly, or maybe it is. I'm not sure. He was this guy was really high on Hudson Card. I'm almost positive he said he was like the next coming of Tom Brady because we already had Graham Mertz as the next coming of Peyton Manning. So we were trying to, compare other quarterbacks there. So I'm curious as what you guys thought about that.
Graham Mertz is good. I don't care what you have to say about that.
Yeah, well, the stats in his play on the field say otherwise. But before we get to Tyler Van Dyke, is Mullen done in Florida? South Carolina destroyed them 40-17 today, and they look like they didn't give a damn.
I didn't see it.
You have to Old Yeller him. Yeah, you have to Old Yeller him.
I wrote about it on the Fantasy Pros primer this week because I said that he's got it. He's probably got to go. I said this game was important, and then they just got their ass kicked. I just said he hasn't recruited well. He has made every wrong decision you can make, especially with his quarterback this year. Richardson should have probably got the start. And I think the final nail in the coffin is if Richardson transfers. I think that's going to be kind of the final nail. This might have been the final nail if it's there. I don't think he's been very good.
40-17.
They gave up 300. They gave up basically what South Carolina does on offense weekly in the first half to a team that doesn't have a real quarterback, has no wide receivers to speak of. They were just getting torched. It was very odd.
All right, Felix, go ahead. Talk about
Tyler Van Dyke is good. I told you that he was good in the offseason. That's the end of the story. I mean,
he's okay.
Who would you rather have after C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young?
He's 2023 eligible.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You were talking
That's
about
what I
him
just
in
said.
the 2024 class earlier with
I
Caleb
was just
Williams
letting
and
him
those
go.
guys. So
So
I didn't say Caleb
Felix
Williams.
tired.
No, you said
Kevin
Tyler
was
Van
talking about
Dyke
him.
when Kevin was talking about the 2024 guys. Although he's probably going to have to come back for one more year because he's not that good. Jake Garcia is going to win that job next year, so he's
I
going to
think it's his
transfer and
job
probably
now.
come out in 2024.
It's his job.
I think
it's his job.
Yeah.
I think he's saving Manny Diaz's job, to be honest with you. I mean, on this win streak that they've been on. And again, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs had a 50-yard catch in that game. I don't know if it was for a touchdown, but was okay on the ground and put up another 70 through the air. He's going to be so good in the NFL if he goes to an offense that can utilize a pass-catching running back, and he's just an excellent player.
Who's been better? So for that offense, Tyler Van Dyke or Charleston Rambo, who has been the target with him there. And Rambo has I've never been a Rambo guy. I thought he was really overrated. Yeah. Everyone just assumed he would be the next guy at Oklahoma. I never thought that was necessarily his level. And then he went here and he played with what's his name for the past year and a half? Derek King, who's just terrible. I'd kind of written him off. I mean, Tyler Van Dyke is giving him CPR. He's back kicking here, and at this point,
that's because Tyler Van Dyke is aggressive and throws the ball downfield. So we had the question in the Discord today: Charleston Rambo or Jackson Smith-Njigba. The answer was Jackson Smith-Njigba, but you would have been just fine if you played Charleston Rambo. He's been very good. I still don't know what to make of him as an NFL prospect, and that's ultimately what you need to the question you need to answer in C2Cs.
I like to shout out Jalen Knighton, my guy from Miami. He's having a good game. Yeah,
someone picked him as a big start this week. Probably the only thing I got right on tailgate. Jackson Smith-Njigba.
He had a great game. Oh, you said that?
In fairness to me, I said that before the Garrett Wilson injury, and I don't just take my stuff off because other people are scared. I said it. It's got to stay out there. I'll hold myself to it. I was wrong. He only had 240 receiving yards. It's not like it was a great game by any means. So
I love Jackson Smith-Njigba. That's my guy.
He's amazing. I
saw him first though. 8th grade. I think I watched some tape on him, and he popped.
Did you know his teacher? His teacher
sent
you a message.
Yeah.
Have you
Texas?
seen this kid?
I got some family in Texas. They sent me a scouting report, so I just want everybody to know I was first.
I need to get to know these families better, man. Get the inside track.
My family's useless. Jesus.
Guys, next week, is it all right? Can I go on to what we're looking forward to next week? Might as well keep everybody in here for that. Maction returns Tuesday and Wednesday. Buffalo, Miami. My old head coach, Chuck Martin, there at Miami of Ohio. Akron and Western Ohio and Eastern Michigan. These are fun games. People need to pay attention to them. And then Wednesday, Toledo at Bowling Green, Ball State at Northern Illinois, Kent State at Central Michigan. I don't know that there is one that I prefer over the other, but I am going to be watching probably Central Michigan because I got Khalil Pimpleton in a league where $3,000 is on the line. So I'll be watching that one.
Mr. High Roller, feel like Sharp over here.
There's a lot of good games. I mean, Thursday night you get North Carolina, Pittsburgh. It's better than the wet fart of a game you get Ravens, Dolphins on it for the NFL, right?
Oh, I'm going to that game. I forgot about that. I'll be there.
Are you?
You're going to the Ravens Dolphins game?
No, UNC versus Pitt
game.
Nobody wants to watch Ravens Dolphins. Why would he go to? Yeah, he said, "Oh yeah, I'm flying down." I mean, you do have that private jet, so it makes sense. But Austin over here, he's flying down to Miami for the Baltimore Ravens, who he hates. Which he doesn't hate them as much as the Browns, but they're pretty close up there. Every time I hear you talk trash about them, so yeah.
No, I hate them more.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah,
the Browns have been irrelevant. Why would I hate them? This show is off the rails.
Really is.
Maction, baby. I love the Mac.
Hey, Alabama gets New Mexico State next week. Start all of your Crimson Tide. What else is here on the slate? Old Miss, Texas A&M. That's going to be a good one. We'll probably go live after the 7 p.m. slate. What else?
There's really nothing. Arkansas, LSU.
Maybe DJ Uiagalelei could continue to play well. He's got UConn. UConn is at Clemson. DJU played relatively well today, and they pulled out the win at U of L.
Hey, you got
He
Oklahoma. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, just DJU. He came out of that game for a few snaps and then came back in the game with what looked like a brace on his right knee. But he's, I think we still need to pay attention to DJU because he's got all the physical tools. And go ahead, Matt. I didn't see that game up there.
Oklahoma Baylor. I mean, I know Baylor lost, so they're not going to be top 15 anymore, but they almost beat Oklahoma last year. Granted, Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams, big shift, but I also think Baylor's a little bit better than they were last year. Jerry Bohannon has been kind of like a rock for them at the quarterback position, so I'm very curious to see how that game goes next weekend.
Felix, I got a question for you. DJU or Tyler Van Dyke?
I mean, right now it's Tyler Van Dyke. I mean, why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be Tyler Van Dyke? Now, I mean, do my rankings reflect that right now? No, I got to drop DJU down a little bit more, but DJU is going down. Tyler Van Dyke is going up. So, boy, is he a fun player to watch.
I mean, if you really want to hit Felix where it hurts, Carson Strong or Tyler Van Dyke?
I mean, Carson Strong has done it for 3 years, so I'm going to take.
Tyler Van Dyke's done it for 3 games. I mean,
done it.
Well,
whatever it is.
All right. Hey,
no Carson Strong slander allowed tonight. I'm too tired.
We appreciate everyone watching us, joining the Campus to Canton team for Coast to Coast tonight. Tune in every single week. We've got you covered for the tailgate in the morning and Coast to Coast following the primetime slate. And tune in next week as we go take you coast to coast. Good night.